Welcome to a Life of Freedom podcast, your source of inspiration and information on how and why you should choose to pursue your own happiness, pursue your passion, and design a life that fulfills you and makes it your own. And now here's your host, Ayesh LKZ.
This is episode 3 of season 2. This is the second part of the interview. Today I'm talking with Robbie Kramer, dating coach, founder of Inner Confidence, and the host of Leverage podcast. Let's get to the show. So you talk about that social circle game with like the models and yachts. So can you dive into that side of your life and kind of?
Sure. So once you execute on what I just talked about, once you go on lots of dates, approach a lot of women, and you have this abundant dating life, you're gonna have a lot of women in your life that you're sleeping with, right? Whether that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, right? Depending on how much you travel. I was doing this in New York back in 2013, and there was 12 women I was sleeping with on a regular basis. And I didn't ask them if they were sleeping with other guys. I'm sure they all were too. And they understood that, it was just sort of casual. But it got to the point where I just didn't have the time and the energy to have that ridiculous sort of dance card, right? My dance card was full, as they said. And the problem was I kept running into the problem where these women wanted to be more than just casual, sex partners. They wanted to be boyfriend, girlfriend. And I wasn't looking for that. I was just looking to have fun and kind of be a playboy. So I was like, all right, what am I doing versus some of these other guys? And at the time, Dan Bilzerian wasn't popular yet. The only sort of guy I had that was, someone that was doing this was Hugh Hefner back in the day, or celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio that, obviously women are throwing themselves at him. But so I was like, all right, how do these guys have all this casual, crazy sex with these models and beautiful women and avoid all this drama that comes with the dating life? And that's when I ran into a couple of New York City promoters, and these guys were doing that as well. They had this sort of dating life. And the difference between them and what I was doing is they weren't approaching women. They weren't taking women on dates. However, they did have a massive funnel of women coming into their life through their promotions business. And they would then just organize social events. So they'd organize events at nightclubs, and they'd bring all the girls that they knew, and they'd bring some other rich guys to pay for the event, because most guys who have money don't have women. So if you can provide the women, they'll gladly pay the money. There's a million rich guys out there. There's very few guys with lots of women. So I realized that at a pretty young age that, having access to beautiful women is more valuable than actually having money. And rather than, executing on this dating funnel, once I built the dating funnel, I was like, all right, I kind of solved that thing, but now I want to have more crazy, fun sexual experiences without the drama. So then I just focused on growing that social circle of women and throwing parties and hosting events. Because what happens at an event is it's kind of like you're on, a bunch of dates at once. Every woman who comes in that event and they see you kind of as the host, you're the guy with the most value there. You have the highest social proof. You're pre-selected. They're going to be attracted to you based on that pre-selection. And if they see you interacting with a lot of women flirting with you, they're just gonna be like, oh, well, if all of these women want him, he must be, the hottest guy here. So I want him too. And if you're going to events with young, crazy, hot girls like Playboy bunnies and, Instagram models, these sorts of women who are also looking for fun, crazy, fast sexual adventures, that's the sort of life you can build. And so I partnered up with these promoters and I kind of copied what they were doing. And then I did it on a bigger scale. I moved over to Eastern Europe and I started throwing events with a guy who was, he was basically had the rights to shoot the Playboy calendar in Ukraine. So we started putting together events and he would bring the women that wanted to be in Playboy, and I would bring clients of mine and other guys that were, interested in having these experiences. We'd rent a yacht in the Maldives, and we'd do a week-long party, or we'd rent a castle in a little outside of Rome, a former Pope's castle we did a party at, and we had a 5-day party there. We rented a villa in Lefkada, Greece, which is some beautiful islands on the Ionian Sea of Greece, the west coast. We did like a month-long party there. We did parties in Cyprus. We did a party in Egypt. And this was, I just started living this crazy lifestyle, just the same thing you would see with Dan Blazarian, by using this new sort of social funnel or social circle dating strategy, where I'm not taking women on dates. I'm just inviting them to parties. They're seeing me at the parties as the host and the guy with the most value. They're all wanting to hook up with me. And then we just hook up at the end of parties. So a lot of those times that was group sex, threesomes, orgies, right? There'd be a lot of girls who'd want to hook up at the same time. So I'm like, well, I kind of want to hook up with you and you, let's go. And it's, those experiences seemed like impossible to me when I first started. I'm like, how do guys have threesomes? Like, what the fuck? Then I experienced so much of that, and it became so normal and easy because of this social circle I created, that eventually all that stuff kind of got boring, which I didn't think could ever happen, but it did. It all got kind of boring and old. I was, partying too much, consuming too much alcohol, not sleeping well. It was affecting my health. And I just got bored of it. So eventually I found a woman who didn't party, but she had all the amazing characteristics that I liked, and that was fun. And then I had just kind of got sick of that lifestyle. And so we got into a committed monogamous relationship. That was about a year and 7 months ago. And now we're engaged, and I have no desire to go back and do all that crazy shit. Like, it was fun, been there, done that. And I suggest that every guy, if they want to do that, they need to go do it. Because if you don't do it and you get into a relationship, there might always be that little part of you that gets kind of drawn back into that. And then you'll end up cheating and ruining your relationship and fucking up your life, especially if you have kids or people that you need to have a good reputation and need to be a good role model for. So that's kind of the progression that I went on, that I think, but most of the guys that I've seen be really happy in relationships, they've done something similar. Maybe they didn't do it to the extent that I was doing it. You don't have to have yacht orgies to do this or to feel like you accomplished this. That was just what I had to do. But it might be whatever version of that is for you to get that, sow the wild oats, that they say.
Okay. So, like you said, so let's talk about what are some kind of like a memorable moments or stories from those days?
So the craziest moment, this is kind of like a subtle brag too, but you asked, so I'll answer. I was hosting a party in Cyprus, which is a cool island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Israel, south of Turkey as well. And we rented a big villa there, and we flew a bunch of friends, girls and guys from Kiev, Ukraine. And on the flight, we were on like I think it was a Ukrainian Airlines flight, normal commercial airliner. I had never had I was never a part of the Mile High Club, which is having sex on an airplane. I had never done that before. Okay. And I just never, I had some girlfriends in the past who always wanted to do it. And I was always just kind of like, oh, what if they catch us? I'm kind of scared. One time I tried to do it and I couldn't get it up, the erectile dysfunction in the back of the airplane because I was too nervous. But on this flight, two of the girls were like, let's go in the bathroom in the back and let's have sex. I'm like, well, if I'm going to join the Mile High Club, I definitely want to do it having a threesome, because how many guys on this planet can say that they've done that? Now, I'm sure there's a lot who have done it on like private jets where it's your jet and doesn't matter. But I don't think a lot of them have done it on a commercial airliner in the tiny little lavatory in the back of a plane. You can barely fit yourself, let alone three people. But me and two girls went back there and we had a threesome in the lavatory, and it was hilarious and funny, and I still have the video that we took from it. So I think that's kind of one of the craziest shit that's gone down. And everyone like in the back of the plane like saw us go in there. They knew what was happening, and I just didn't give a shit at that point. My my level of giving a shit and the social freedom of just being on that plane in the first place with 18 young hot girls, right? And just kind of living that lifestyle, none of that shit kind of surprised me anymore. My tolerance for doing weird things was very high, as you could say. So that would be the craziest.
So that's great. So do you have any other stories? So you can share one or two.
I mean, I have a million, but I tell these on my podcast. I call it Story Time with Robbie. It's part of the Leverage podcast. And just for time's sake, the stories are much more interesting when I go into depth and I tell them, and a lot of them need a lot of buildup. So, if you guys want to hear more crazy stories, you can just go over to the Leverage podcast and click on the ones that say Story Time with Robbie. And those are all crazy stories from my insano partying days.
Yeah, that's good. So, so how did you transition from, going on multiple dates, having multiple women, and going through this kind of event, from doing the day game and doing dating then, and then coming to social circle game?
Good question. So for every guy, this is going to be different. There's no standard sort of operating procedure. But if you get to the point where you're having that same problem that I was having, which is you have a lot of women in your life that you're sleeping with, you don't want to be committed, but the women continually want you to commit and you keep running into drama, that's when you have to make the transition, because otherwise you're just going to keep ending up in these shitty situations. And how you do that is you have to figure out how to give value in a social circle situation, right? Because that there's these social circles of young, beautiful women with usually rich and powerful guys, right? Young, hot women gravitate towards rich and powerful men. Obviously, with confidence will help. There's a lot of rich and powerful guys that just end up paying the bill and they don't get laid. So you don't want to be that guy, right? You want to be the rich and powerful guy with awesome social skills, right? But you notice that these groups run together. So you're not going to get invited by those guys unless you have something of value to offer, right? In my case, when I met these promoters in New York City, what they needed was they had these model houses where it was easier for them. They were getting paid to bring women to nightclubs. That's what a promoter does, right? They find an event and then the event pays them money to bring good looking people, mostly women, right? Because it's easy to get guys to come and drink. All guys like to go and drink, especially if there's hot girls there. If there's no hot girls at a place, guys won't come. If there's lots of hot girls, every guy wants to come. So a promoter's job is literally to bring hot girls to events. And the easiest way for a promoter to do that is to have all the girls grouped together that they can easily transport them from point A to point B, because it's very hard to get young, beautiful women to show up to things, right? It's like herding cats. They're very flaky. So what these guys thought of, which is pretty genius, is they're like, let's create model houses and have these young, beautiful models all live in a house for free. And they can go and do their modeling jobs during the day. That, we have no business what their modeling jobs are. They can do that on their own. We're not offering them jobs. We're offering them a free place to live in exchange for coming out to the nightclub 3 or 4 days a week. So they provided the housing for models. They call them model houses, or mohos for short. If you heard me talk about it on other podcasts, there's other content I've done, I like to refer to them as mohos. And I call the girls that live in model houses also mohos. So mohos live in a moho. Models live in the model house. And these promoters, when they told us that they were doing that, me and my buddy who kind of met them, we met them out at a bar and we just kind of clicked with them. We're like, these guys are social beasts. And that it was easy to see that vibe when you're in this sort of energy, which guys are doing really well. And we just ended up grabbing a coffee with this guy, Ben, at the Starbucks. And he was like, yes, that's kind of what we're doing. And we're like, well, that's interesting because we have vacation rentals in New York City. We were running an Airbnb business along with our coaching business. And that's a whole nother story and a whole nother product that I sell is I teach guys how to set up a passive income streams using Airbnb arbitrage, which is essentially finding a place, living there for a month, convincing your landlord to allow you to rent it out short term on Airbnb. and then turning it into a little hotel and running that mini hotel operation. So that's what we were also doing in New York City at the time when I was living there. We were doing the dating coaching stuff, and we had this little Airbnb side hustle. And when the guys told us about these model houses, we said, hey, do you need more model houses? Because we have apartments that we could convert from Airbnbs into model houses. And they're like, yeah, we do. It's harder for us to find good places for model houses because you need like 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7 bedroom places. The more bedrooms, the better, right? And we had like a 5-bedroom place in New York City in Union Square. So we're like, all right, well, we will allow you to use that place as a model house. And in exchange, you have to allow us to come to the nightclub every time for free and have access to these models, and you have to pay us rent. So it was both a business transaction and an awesome social benefit for us. And that's the angle that we found is we provided housing for these model houses. And some guys that I've worked with, their way of getting into it is to start like modeling agencies. It's usually involving some sort of modeling or, if you want to hang out with hot models or girls that want to be models, most girls who are quote unquote models aren't really fucking models. They're just fake models. They're just hot chicks with Instagram followings, or they're bloggers now. Now they usually say they're bloggers. But you need to be either a photographer or someone in the modeling industry or someone in the promotions industry or the owner of a nightclub or the owner of a yacht or the owner of this or the owner of that to get access to this. And like I said, it's going to be different for every guy. You have to find out where you can offer value and provide that value. And then in exchange, you'll get access to these sorts of social circles. And the more value you provide and the more fun you are as a guy, the better your social skills are, the more you can play in these environments and have influence and the power to build that even bigger. Once I started doing the Playboy parties, that shot my value through the roof because every girl wants to come to a Playboy party. Every girl wants a free week-long trip on a yacht, right? So I just had nonstop women coming into my life through my Instagram. They'd see my photos or through other girls that would come on the other trips and they'd be like, Robbie's so awesome. He throws these awesome parties. I want to come back. You got to bring your friends. So it just got to the point where it was just overwhelming, right? I never had to approach after that. It would be stupid to approach actually, and the difference is kind of like, I like to say it's hunting versus farming. When you first get started in the stuff and you're going on lots of dates and you're approaching women, doing day game, that's hunting, right? You're going out and you're hunting. Yeah. But eventually, if you want to switch out of that, you got to change to a farming model. And that's what Social Circle is. But you don't get to do farming until you become a really good hunter, because farming won't work unless you know how to hunt. So a lot of guys will be like, oh yeah, I want to skip that approaching stuff. That sounds hard. That sounds like anxiety. I want to just do Social Circle. I'm like, no, sorry, bro. You don't get to do that. You got to put in the hard work and become a top grade hunter. And then during that process, you'll find out what your value is. You'll become more confident and you'll be able to play in these Social Circle leagues and do this crazy shit if that's what you want to do.
Okay. So how was it different, from like dating women in the before and how would you do that in the social circle?
Let me make sure I understand the question. How is it different dating in the Social Circle versus on a date?
Yeah. Like beautiful dating, like the day approaching in the day and you're doing that date. And like how is it different in the social circles? How would you go from like, if is it like a different process? How does that work?
So I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but okay. To reiterate, if you're on a date, you're on one-on-one, you're going through that dating protocol. I literally have an ebook PDF. It's called the Dating Protocol. You can download it for free on my website and it'll show you how to run a date. But if you're doing Social Circle, you're not going to be going on dates. You're just going to be going to events. The events that you're throwing, the events that your buddies are throwing, you're going to meet women at those events. And you're usually going to be meeting lots of women. And you're not going to take them on dates, because if you do take them on a date, what are you saying? You're saying, I want to date you. I want to be with you. I want to be your boyfriend, right? Or you're saying, I don't want to be your boyfriend. I just want to fuck you. And I'm an asshole, right? That's kind of like how those sort of players are perceived. So you don't want to be a player, right? So rather than take women on dates, host parties And during those parties, women are going to be throwing themselves at you. They're going to be flirting with you, trying to kiss you, trying to get you alone. And the ones who like you are going to stay to the after party. And you can just hook up with them at the after party, whether that's one of them or two of them at a time or, whatever. It's kind of up to you what your sort of sexual appetite is. But if you hook up with them at a party, you don't have this sort of dating obligation that you might have if you took her on a date. Right. If you take a girl, what one mistake guys will make is they'll start doing social circle. Then they'll start taking the girls that they like on dates. And then, they'll of course have sex with them after the date. And then the girl will come to the next party and get all pissed off that you're flirting with other girls at the party. And you're like, wait, why am I dealing with this drama? I thought I was doing the social circle to avoid this drama. It's like, well, no, idiot. You took her on a date and you did that to get in her pants because you wanted to fuck. And now you're wondering why now she's getting jealous. Of course she's going to get jealous because you gave her that attention and now you're taking it away and you're focusing it on someone else. Like jealousy is normal.
That's like backfire.
Yeah, it totally backfires. So you don't get to do that. You cannot take women on dates if you want to do no drama social circle dating or fucking, I guess you could say. You can only have sex when they are trying to have sex with you. And that takes a lot of willpower. If you watch Dan Bilzerian's interviews or other guys like that, it's like you're constantly saying no to sex when you're in that situation, right? But sex is like it's the easiest thing in the world to get. It's like constantly being thrown at you because all the women there want to fuck you. But you're only having sex with the ones where you're like, all right, she's not going to be drama. She's cool. She's down. Like, she's not going to give a shit if I have sex with her friend. And then you're like, all right, that's fine. Now I can do that. Right. Because you have to protect your reputation. If you ever have the reputation that you're a player and asshole, the whole thing will fall apart because the only thing that matters in social circle is your reputation. So if you're a creep or you're an asshole or you're a player and you do these things, it's going to spread like wildfire. Your reputation is going to be shit. No one's going to go to your events, and this thing that you've spent your hard time and effort building is going to collapse in your face. So you have to be very strategic who you have sex with, and you have to make sure it's not going to lead to drama. And you only have sex when she's like begging for it, and it's not in a dating environment. You wait till the end of a party. You do it at the after party. If it's an orgy, that usually makes things easier, right? If you're having sex with a girl and two of her friends, she's not going to be jealous the next time she sees you at a party and you're flirting with other girls because it's like, yeah, he's just that kind of guy. He's just a fuck boy, right? And I'm not going to get jealous over a fuck boy because, I'm a fuck girl in that situation, right? So the way you avoid drama is by not taking them on dates and not showing that you're interested in that sort of connection. Okay.
So how did you start hosting your own events? Before, you said you worked with promoters and you did the model houses and you went to the event. So when did you start hosting your own?
So when I was in New York and working with the promoters there, we started doing trips to the Hamptons in the summer. Okay. So I'd rent a house on Airbnb, 10-bedroom house, a big mansion out there. And all the girls I was meeting through, the promoters and the bottles and the model tables and, going to nightclubs, and even some of the girls I had left over from day game who were just kind of casual, fun relationships. So we'd invite all the girls. We'd invite cool guys that we were friends with. We invited some clients as well, because it was a great place for them to kind of learn and see all this stuff in action. Rent a house, go out for 4th of July weekend, do 3-day weekend and just have a big weekend long party. And those were, started doing those in the summer of 2012, I think, 2013. And then I organized a trip to Eastern Europe. I brought 3 of the models that I had and some clients, and we just kind of toured around, went to Budapest, Belgrade, Istanbul, Thessaloniki, Greece, and we did like a 2-week trip around. Went to some different festivals, and that was a big success. And then we did a trip down to South America. We did Rio de Janeiro and Florianopolis, Brazil. That was 2 weeks down in Carnival, January, February 2016. Then did that same Europe trip the next summer in 2017. Then in 2018, I met the Playboy guy through mutual friends in Kiev, and we kind of clicked immediately. It was very obvious, when you're living this lifestyle, when you meet other guys that are doing the same thing, you just kind of get a feeling for it. You know who's real and who's not once you're a seasoned sort of player in this industry. Not a player in terms of sex, like I was saying before, just someone who's consistently in those arenas, right? So I was like, all right, this guy's real. He knew I was real. He invited me to his birthday. I came to the birthday. I brought another buddy who contributed money. We had a great time. And then he started, he trusted me at that point, and he was like, all right, you want to do some of these Playboy events? And I'm like, yeah, I can definitely bring guys and bring girls. He's like, you don't need to bring girls. I have all the girls. I have the million girls who want to go on a Playboy calendar shoot. But I need guys. I need guys to help pay, because it's expensive as fuck. And the girls aren't going to pay, of course, because they're just young models, right? So, we have to pay for the photo shoot and the accommodations. And he's like, some girls pay, but that's very rare. So, and I had a lot of, guys I knew in the industry that were looking for those sort of crazy parties. So we joined up and started doing the Playboy events. And that was that started in 2018. And we did those once, it's usually once or twice a month for a year and a half. And then by right around the time Corona started in 2020, I had been doing that already for almost a year and a half, close to 2 years. And I was just kind of sick of it anyways. So that was when I started winding down and looking for something different lifestyle wise.
Okay. So how did this COVID, having COVID, affect your lifestyle from that?
It didn't actually. When COVID happened, it actually made things easier for me, because when I was hosting parties, especially in Kiev, I usually wouldn't host a party on a Friday or Saturday night, because then I'd be competing with nightclubs and other venues, right? And I would usually do house parties or private parties. And so a lot of girls wouldn't come because they wanted to go to Club XYZ, or they wanted to go to Closer or Chi, or some Sky Bar, whatever, the popular clubs in Kiev at the time. And when COVID happened, all those places were closed, but people still wanted to party. And I didn't give a shit about COVID rules or lockdowns or any of that nonsense. So I just started having more parties. But on Friday or Saturday night, I had a huge loft in Kiev. My buddy would bring in his DJ equipment. I'd have a bunch of lights, and we'd make our own nightclub. And we were having these insane parties in the beginning of 2020. And some of the ratios of these events, we had 20 girls, 5 guys at one event, which is too much. Usually you want to aim for a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio of women to men. You always want more women, because you don't want a sausage fest, and no woman wants to be in a party with too many guys, no matter how horny she is. Too many guys is just too many predators. It's always better, even for girls, to have more girls, they say. So we were hosting these events, and COVID didn't matter. COVID just made our events more popular. So I just got sick of doing them after a while.
So, how would you organize such a party? So, what would be the logistics?
Well, the first thing you need are the people, obviously. And because I was doing much bigger parties all the time, these week-long photo shoot events, I knew, 50% of the hot women in Kiev. I knew tons of guys that like to go to these sorts of events. So that was easy. Getting the people there was easy. The other part is simply, having a good space and controlling the ratio, controlling the number of people. And I would like to keep them small, because, I think if you have more than 30 people at a party, it just becomes too big. You can't meet everyone anyways, and there's just not a big point to do it. So we'd keep it to, 20 to 30 people maximum. That's about as big as my 4-bedroom place in the middle of Kiev could comfortably hold. Like I said, I brought in my buddy who liked to DJ. He had a DJ setup, speakers, table, all that. I would provide the lighting. So I just got some cheap lights on Amazon, sort of these multicolored lasers that are very inexpensive, but they're really cool. You place 4 of them in the corner and you create this sort of nightclub-like environment. And then we also had shisha. We would have we'd rent a shisha company to come in. They would come in and provide the the setup, the shishas, and they would do the coals and the tobacco, and kind of like one person could cater the whole party for shisha. So we'd have 5 or 6 shishas going, which is super popular. And, in a lot of places now. They were mostly just popular in the Middle East and Kiev and Ukraine, Russia, but now they're very popular, getting more popular in the West too. And then, obviously have enough drinks for everyone as well. So this is the main thing, is make sure you have good music, good things to eat and drink. We didn't provide anything to eat, but lots of stuff to drink, lots of stuff to smoke. The right number of people there, and then just make sure to control who we came. We wouldn't invite, we'd be very selective about who we invited, and make sure girls are only bringing girls that we said could come, and make sure guys know that they can't bring other guys, or they have to get permission.
Okay, so so for the last question, so what kind of things do you do now when how's your current situation?
So as I said, I kind of got sick of that partying lifestyle. I wanted to, I'm 39 now. I'll be 40 in June. And like a year and a half ago, I had, spent all of my 30s partying. I started kind of, like I said, I got into this stuff at the age of 23, but in my 20s, it was more of like a sort of journey of becoming more of a confident guy. And most guys don't really get to the point where they're doing really well until they're early 30s. That's when you have a little bit of money, you have some experience. Guys mature a lot later than women. So I kind of hit my stride right around the age of 29, 30. And that's when I was really running around New York, going on tons of dates, approaching a ton of women. And I did that until I was 32. And then I got into the social circle stuff kind of around the age of 33. And I did that hardcore from 33 until 37. So 4 years of a lot of partying, a lot of fucking, a lot of this stuff. This was my life. And I was making money doing this too. I was coaching and throwing these events. So it was all sort of intertangled. And I had my Airbnb business as well. And that was generating passive income on the side. So I didn't have to show up to a job. I didn't have anyone to report to. My life was to party. And as anything, even if it's fun, you can still get sick of it. If you eat chocolate cake, as good as that is, if you eat it every day for even a month, you're going to get really sick of chocolate cake. It's just how we are in life, right? We get sick of things we do over and over and over, no matter how cool or awesome they sound to other people. We get sick of them. And that's what happened to me. I just kind of got bored of it. And as I was getting bored of it, I was looking more and more for a woman who kind of shared my values, who was still fun and I could meet in these party environments, but wasn't hooked on the party environments, because that was kind of what I was meeting before. I was meeting these girls that they seemed really cool and down and good to be good girlfriends, but then they wouldn't be. They would cheat, or they would be untrustworthy, or they would just be too addicted to partying and drugs or whatever. Just not quality sort of people to have a stable relationship with. And then when I did meet my fiance, I was like, wow, this is totally different than I had experienced dating really anyone in the past. And we just kind of naturally moved into more of a committed relationship. And I was happy to leave that lifestyle behind. And now we just we have 2 dogs and we travel around. This winter we've been in Turkey to avoid, we left Ukraine in January to avoid the winter. I'm glad we left because we ended up avoiding the war as well. But we went down to Turkey to play golf. So that's kind of what we've been doing since. And, we're waiting to get her fiance visa. We'll probably move back to the States and, start a life there in the near future.
Okay. So final question is, what does freedom means to you?
Freedom. Doing what I want, when I want, with who I want, whenever I want, I guess. I don't want to answer to anyone. I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. I want to be the captain of my own ship. That's true freedom is, you know, I make the rules, I call the shots. And I pick what I commit to. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean I'm an irresponsible, uncommitted asshole that just does whatever the fuck I want when I want. That's just being a turd, right? Like I do commit to things. I do. If I say I'm going to do something, I keep my word. And I'm very careful what I commit to, because if I commit to something that sucks, that really puts a burden on my freedom and makes me not feel free and makes me not want to do it. Then I have to break my commitment, and that's really shitty. So if you want to live a life of freedom, you have to be very careful what you say yes to, because it's a lot harder to say no, at least for me, than it is to say yes. And that's what I have to be aware of, is making sure I say yes to the right things and no to mostly everything else.
So great. It's great to meet you, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, you got it. Yes, yeah. Good to chat. Thanks for the good questions. It's fun.
Thank you for listening to our conversation. Please leave a review and subscribe from wherever you listen to our podcast. See you next time.